An orangutan playing guitar would be awesome. Clap, I guess. Today's show was brought to you in part by Higher Grounds Coffee. They didn't sponsor anything. I bought some coffee from them and then made some coffee, and it's really good. This is a Carino. It's a honey process, and it's deliciously fruity and caramely with a what? Oh, it's a honey process micro lot. Kind of interesting. It's a blend of a couple of micro lots and a community lot and some stuff, and I read a lot of things, and it all means something, and I don't remember all of it. But like I was saying before, I was so rudely interrupted. It's this delicious, like, fruity, caramely thing. It tastes fantastic in espresso. It tastes great in French press, and those are the only two ways I think I've had it so far. I'll probably try it in Turkish. That's a great way to have it, but I feel like it would make a really good cafecito. We are playing the 90s. So the year is 1994, and grunge is a big thing. Kind of, well, post-grunge, whatever. Different bands, different stuff. A lot of things going on. 1994, I got my first electric guitar and my first couple of pedals and my first amp. This is not that electric guitar. This is actually a Les Paul Studio from 1984, but it actually would have been a very affordable secondhand, good quality guitar in 1994. And the reason we're going back to 1994 as well, because that's kind of when I started playing electric guitar. There you have it. However, I do actually still have my first two pedals and my first amp, so we're going to talk about those. This is the DF7, the Distortion Factory, a Digitech X Series pedal that has 7 digital models of classic distortion pedals. Realistically, it's got 4 digital models of classic distortion pedals, I think, and the rest are pretty lame or Digitechs, things like that. What it does have are 3 pedals that I actually have the pedals for now, which I did not at the time. I just had that thing. I also had this Peavey Delta Stomp, which is a multi-effects pedal using DSP, so also digital. And some of the effects are great, some of the effects are terrible. But, yeah, is what it is. Amazon delivery person dropping off a package, that's what I was staring at right there. It has 3 reverb settings. They all sound like the same reverb setting. I believe it was supposed to be spring, hall, and plate, but they all just sound like a small room reverb with different EQ curves. It has a rotary speaker emulator, which is the best feature about it. A flanger, a chorus, and a phaser. It has multiple delays. It has a tremolo, a volume swell. I mean, you obviously need your multi-effects unit to do volume swell. You couldn't use a volume pedal for that. It has the world's worst octaver. Oh, and it has a wah and an auto wah. The wah is actually pretty good. And as memory serves, the flange isn't terribly bad. But here's some tones of that reverb. Just kind of a sort of murky reverb. Let's switch to the flange number 15. Is that right? Oh God, also, there's a major problem with the power supplies. The power supplies are pieces of crap, and it doesn't accept a standard 9 volt. It accepts a 16.5 volt, 1000 milliamp or 1 amp power supply. They break all the time. They cost about 25 bucks to find a new one. This thing is barely worth 25 bucks. However, it's a fun little historical oddity. An interesting thing about that pedal is that it has separate volume controls for input level and output level. They're both pretty sketchy. It has a bunch of exposed LEDs on it, which is not something I'm a huge fan of because I've broken them. They're not protected. Now, these others are basically the same. The Big Muff, which I have a little Big Muff, not an original, not anything special. It's one that it's a Big Muff, it's a fuzz. It has an exposed LED, but you can't kick it, really, unless you're really trying, because it's in front of the switch. The Tube Screamer, this is actually a TS Mini. The LED is hidden in between all of these knobs. On the R.A.D, the LED is actually below the surface, and you can't break it. But on the Peavey Delta Stomp, you can easily break it, because those LEDs are exactly right where your toe goes, and I smashed those things in gigs in the early 2000s a million times. We'll turn that off. Okay, so the point to this whole exercise is that regardless of the fact that this is a pretty garbage pedal, and that's a pretty garbage pedal, and this is a solid state amp and not tube, I still actually managed to rock a lot of shows with it. You can do a lot of things with a lot of stuff that people don't think you can. This Fender R.A.D bass, my dad bought this for me. Pretty fantastic gift, I think. It's solid state, says 75 watts on the back. It's actually 35 watts. It's rated for 75 watts of power consumption, and that's 35 solid state watts, which are nowhere near the same as 35 tube watts. But, well, I mean, literally 1 watt is 1 watt, but you tend to get more sound pressure out of 1 equivalent watt of a tube from a tube amp than you do from a solid state amp because of blah blah science I don't really care. They're louder than these. However, this is actually a really good sounding amp. It has a great tone stack. It has no built-in effects. It has a whole bunch of plugs that mostly don't work. It has a 3-band EQ. And the power cord on it has broken a couple of times and I've repaired it. Honestly, the only real problem it still has is that I kind of blew a little bit of the speaker cone one time when I was doing a gig and cranked it up super loud. But it sounds pretty decent if we just kind of tune it a little bit, make it a little bit more mid-friendly. I don't know what I was doing with that lead. Regardless, it actually sounds pretty solid. And this 84 Les Paul, much like pretty much anything with humbuckers that you can get, sounds pretty solid, and I enjoy it. This is made out of alder and not out of mahogany. I've talked about that in a previous video, but it doesn't have that sweet Les Paul mahogany sound. It doesn't have all the binding that would make it cost a lot more. However, you can still rock with it. In '94, I picked up a Samick. It was a translucent green, swamp ash body, super strat kind of thing, with a humbucker here and a single coil here. The humbucker was not very humbucking. It hissed. The single coil was too bright to do anything with. I think the humbucker, only one coil was active. You had to play it in between the pickups all the time. Otherwise, it was ridiculously loud and it was super just annoyingly bright. But still managed to actually play a lot of shows with that. So, the moral of the story is you can actually get a hell of a lot more out of just practicing and playing some songs than you can out of trying to constantly chase someone else's tone. As long as you put in a little bit of work, probably more than I put in, you can be a pretty badass guitar player with some pretty basic gear. You can get yourself a solid state amp, you can get yourself a Boss Katana or something like that, and a Squier guitar, and rock the house. And if anybody gives you any crap, you can always just put electric tape over the name, so that way it doesn't matter. So, if you like the video, please give it a like and subscribe. And apologies for my dog not making an appearance this time. He's napping on the couch over there. Peace. Somebody already delivered the package, buddy. You don't need to growl at them. They're long gone. They're not there anymore. I watched them through the window while you were napping.